Hello everyone, welcome to Jules and Monty Director's Commentary. Now we're going to take a look at episode 6, the balcony scene. Let's go.
Hey Imogen, who's this song by?
This is Emma's friend Katie Gavin, and the song is Red Shoes.
Good answer.
Hello, Internet. 2 essays down and 1 vlog to go until I can finally.
I had a really good time blocking this scene with Imogen. It was kind of like her and I figuring it out, and also talking about this character who, like, we had both kind of grown really close to, and I think that this is just a really, I love, like, this.
Yeah, no, one of the best things actually was just being able to work with you on this sort of stuff. I mean, Evie and I had the benefit of being roommates, so we'd be laying in bed at night and memorizing lines or just like calling across the aisle, hey, I have this idea. Okay, cool, let's talk about it.
This whole feud makes us unbelievable.
Also, this monologue just came out beautifully. I love the little movement that you have here. The fairy lights in the background look absolutely enchanting. Just everything about this is just,
Well, it's a young girl falling in love, unfortunately, in not so great circumstances, and I like that in a way the setting kind of contrasts what she's saying.
Also, I'd like to note that these shots were just meticulously set up, and you guys did a great job keeping them, because behind those shots is just the entire crew, the guy holding the mic, I think that was JJ that night, and just all of the lighting was like right behind you right now. So hiding that was just well done, team.
Yeah, we had a bit of a challenge because we have a very narrow place between Evie's and my bed, and we had to, Ben and I had to pace up and down this little narrow part, and then he had to jump onto my bed so that I could kneel down next to it, and it was a bit of a nightmare, but we figured it out.
So if you're wondering what that white peak is, it's a tissue.
Yeah, this was the take we were gonna not use, but I think at this point it was like 1 in the morning.
Yeah, the balcony scene was definitely the hardest episode to. Well, no, okay, the party scenes and the balcony scene were the hardest to film. They took all 3 of those episodes took forever, and a lot of work went into them. Acting, blocking, cinematography, whatever. They were really hard.
I like that new word.
That's a good word. This one is actually comprised of 3 cuts. The first cut was when Jules pulled the camera into her shirt. The second one is coming up right now. Look at that.
I just don't get any blood anywhere now.
I was on blood duty again for this episode. I was waiting outside to slap Ed's face with blood-covered tissue.
Also, little Easter egg, what's funny is that you've seen now in consecutive shots both my desk area and Imogen's desk area, and you'll notice that both of us have 2 of the exact same posters, because they're both from plays that Imogen and I have either acted in together or been in together in some capacity, so it just looks like Nancy and Jules might be secret theater people.
They're not telling you.
Love's like wings
Something that some people have noticed speak to actor-character crossover. Ed's watch on his ankle is something that Monty also carries, and I love that Jules, like Imogen, is not afraid to rock the baby hairs, which she certainly does in this episode. You see them at the beginning.
They're uncontrollable.
Oh, wow.
This episode was actually one of the first ones we wrote and was very important to us because I think it really set the mood for how we wanted this series to go. And I struggle with it because it has a lot of Shakespeare, but it was the one in which I felt the most Shakespeare was necessary, as the balcony scene is so famous and so loved, and there are few other... It wouldn't sound the same or have the same intent if they were to use modern language, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's both, the balcony, it's both Jules and Monty's balcony scene, but it's also almost just 2 really good actors doing the balcony scene, which I think is, like, kind of awesome.
Thank you.
And I love watching, and also...
When, like our friend Hannah said, in the throes of love and drunkenness, the Shakespeare comes out, and this is definitely one of the examples where the love is felt so intensely that they cannot help but speak in a heightened way. The same thing goes for musical theater, where people say that characters sing when the emotion is too intense and they can't contain it anymore, and I think the same thing applies here.
And it's been interesting to see how audiences have been very divided as to whether they like the Shakespeare or they don't. Personally, I think that in our adaptations, Ed and I will always use original language, as we really feel it sets this story apart, but also that it adds a little something special, and that you can hopefully see that though they're speaking differently, the feelings are the same, and these stories are still so relatable.
If you noticed just now too, I think the use of language is very self-aware too. You have the line, "Dost thou love me?" and then oh shit, that's too much. So Ed and Imogen, I think, did a great job of being aware of those moments that in this setting would sound ridiculous.
That's part of the fun. We got to play around with that. And I think it very telling for Juliet. Even in the original play, she's more aware of the crazy nature of their romance. And in this case, you see she's kind of catching herself, even as she says something very bold. It's, oh, no, but I can't say that. Oh, but maybe. And in this modern context, it makes sense, because who says they love you on the second meeting?
I mean, yeah, it is a little bit soon, but at the same time, like, you can tell that they're both totally into it. And I think that's something sort of timeless about this. Like, in the original, it is this, like, rushed romance, and it's just like, I gotta charge into this kind of thing. But these are two people who met each other and just immediately, like, snapped together, and they know that they work together. And it's the first time that you see them not just hooking up at a party or thinking about each other, but really talking to each other, and they still do get along, and I kind of love that about it.
Yeah. I also love that Ed is wearing, like, his Wonder Weasel shirt, because it's like so not romantic. Like, this boy shows up at your... Not that Wonder Weasel isn't romantic, Ed.
I was about to say, yo, back the hell off.
Poor Evie had to sit in the hallway in a towel all night, and had to keep getting her hair wet in order to make it look good, and I think you're a trooper.
So many people came up to me and asked me, they're like, do you need help? And I was like, no.
Got my undies.
I actually really love this, like,
the desk move coming up
the
here.
desk move.
Oh,
I
my
like
favorite.
the kind of rushed exchange they have right here. It adds a bit of humor to a scene that sometimes can get a little bit too melodramatic, especially because it has this line where he's like, well, if she's naked, I can stay, or something like that. This is the great reminder that Monty is a college boy.
Yeah, this blocking that we did is actually, I think it's my favorite blocking in the web series, and I'm really happy with how it looks.
Also, you heard it here first. If you need to hide someone, under the desk. No one will see them. Promise.
Apparently.
I do love, too, that he's on a lower level. There is this kind of, like, quasi-proposal scenario where he's down on his knees, and she's talking, and I think it's really lovely, whether or not it was...
Yeah, I actually wanted to put Juliet on a higher level than him in terms of the blocking. I wanted her to be on the higher level and kind of give her the power in this scene, because I think she has it.
Yeah, so that's episode 6. I'm really proud of that episode. I think it was the one I was the most worried about, because the balcony scene is so famous, and so many people have preconceived notions as to how it should look. But we chose to not put it on a balcony, and we chose to put more Shakespeare in, and to have these people really have a conversation. And there are little glimpses of the original balcony scene, the young lover at the balcony and all that, but I'm really proud of how this turned out.
One of the reasons I was really concerned is because this is one of the scenes that, like, even if people don't know Romeo and Juliet super well, they know this scene. Like, they've heard at least chunks of it, they've been familiar with it, and sort of, in a way, repurposing it with our adaptation of the language and stuff could offend a diehard Shakespeare lover, but also someone who's not familiar enough with it. There's enough of the language in there that it could confuse them. So it was just sort of a wave of relief as we checked on the episode after it was released, and just seeing people reacting well to it and well to those decisions.
It was all about walking a line, right? Because I'd say that all of us would count ourselves in the diehard Shakespeare lovers camp, maybe.
Maybe.
I know, maybe. I know Imogen and I certainly.
Oh, absolutely. No, yes.
Also, I mean, like I talked about in my vlog extra, like, even though I'm like a diehard Shakespeare person, I love the original text. One of my main goals with this project was to make it accessible. So it was walking the line. And I guess how I looked at it, and obviously I didn't write this scene, but in the delivery of it and the blocking and everything like that, I guess my point was to show that Shakespeare can be accessible, because I think that sometimes people close off their minds to it and they're like, oh, it's just like poetic mumbo jumbo from, you know, a bygone era, and people don't really talk like that. And I think that if you really listen to what they're saying, it's you can get it, and it's beautiful, and it's stuck around for a reason. So I think that we kind of did walk that line of, you know, keeping the beauty of the language, which is hard to rival, and keeping it accessible and modern. And I think that the balcony scene is probably where we did that best, maybe, even.
Right. There's also, I think, something to be said for including the language as a way of saying, you know, there's more to Shakespeare's content than the plot. You know, people adapt Shakespeare all the time, and I think in a lot of adaptations you see, you know, the plot and characters, the basic structure of the piece being the focus, and that being more or less the, you know, the only thing that's really borrowed in less successful adaptations, I would say. And I think that one of the things that makes this adaptation successful is that it does give credit to the language and to the tone that the language creates.
And each of these stories, like, Shakespeare's not the only one who's written these stories.
Oh, yeah.
No, he had source materials for almost, you know, for all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like,
love.
Yeah, I mean, really one of, like, Midsummer is, like, the one that he, like, kind of completely came up with, and look how that turned out. It was fucking nuts.
I also think this episode is very important because it is the first time you really see Jules and Monty interact. Like, you kind of spot them together in episodes 5, but this one is definitely the first time you see how they might interact as a couple, and I enjoy watching it for that.
Right, and also I think, you know, while the first meeting is, you know, technically the first meeting, it's at a party, you know, they've had a little bit to drink, there are more people around, you know, they're flirting, they're whatever, but this is, you know, they're alone. This is the first time they're speaking alone.
This is also one of 4 times that we get both Jules and Monty on camera talking to each other, which, you know, out of 18 episodes, not a great margin, but it's better than the original play, so...
But it also, like, I think that also speaks to an issue with the play too, and that at the end of the day, this is a love story, and it's about 2 young people for sure, but there are other forces in this story, and their love story may be the center of it, but it's not really the most important aspect, I think.
It's not what's driving the plot, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more it's not necessarily, it's not just driving the plot, it's what is being affected by the plot. I mean, in the original play, you have Jules is 13, and Monty, I believe he's 17 or 19. Like, he's 17, in that age range. 17, 19, yeah, one of those. So you have 2 very young people who are wrapped up in societal pressures and everything else. And our characters, for one thing, are 18 and 20, and they are off on their own at university. But I mean, sure, we had to have that strong society tearing them apart, but their relationship lasts longer than 3 days. It's about 3 months. So that is episode 6. This song is by Martha Marlowe, who is my love. You should all look her up. She's an incredibly talented
correction. This is Katie Gavin with Red Shoes.
Can we do this again? I got the episode wrong.